tomato seeds turn into concrete when they dry.
Did not know that. Welcome to the Camo Hooks podcast. This is Mike.
This is Luke.
And we are going to continue to talk about things we know very little about, but we'll try to sound smart doing it. All right, so here's...
my life.
It really is. I think most jobs I've gotten have revolved around that somehow.
Yeah.
Just say it with authority.
Sure, yeah. Say it with confidence.
Yeah. Well, confidence is one thing that we may have, but experience is something that we're a little short on. And we talk about that a lot, is that we are not seasoned hunters or anglers by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope.
Luke is a veteran of 5 deer hunts.
5 deer hunts.
Few fishing trips. I have dove hunted and fished, and this will be my first full season as a bow hunter. So we're diving into that. So something that occurred to me the other day, I've had my eye to small game lately. It's not, obviously it's not whitetail season here yet in Texas. I've had my eye on small game. I've been thinking squirrels and rabbits. Squirrels primarily because they're visible. You're going to see them. That's sort of like, that's like the appetizer for whitetail season, as far as I can tell. That's the appetizer. I'm sure there's a better culinary term. Antipasti, is it?
Depending on the size of the squirrel, it may be an amuse-bouche. When you break down your first squirrel, you may only have enough for that 1 or 2 bites.
I see. So go into the difference between an amuse-bouche and an hors d'oeuvre for me. Tell me what I'm looking at difference-wise there. I'm thinking on the spot, like right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. An amuse-bouche typically is going to be more served in a restaurant.
Oh my God, I'm so bored.
It's free.
So bored right now.
They're going to give it to you. An hors d'oeuvre you're going to get at a party off of a tray.
So this is
they're both going to be 1 or 2 bites. The amuse-bouche typically is going to be a little more snooty, though.
I got you. Is there a level of snootiness that you measure in a dish when you're making it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as a chef?
It depends on how many foams are included in the dish.
Yes. How many gels, if you will.
Yes, gels, gelée. It depends on how many sets of tweezers touch the dish before it got to you. Yeah,
I believe it's called Robillard scale of snootiness. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Just from my reading,
sure.
I read a little French culinary literature. As you know, I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
What occurred to me is thinking about squirrels. I have backyard squirrels. And, it occurred to me, like, it's possible if one's on the ground and it's safe around where I live, I could take one. I have the small game heads. I feel confident enough from 10 yards where I normally see them, I can do it. So lo and behold, finally I was outside and I saw one that was on the ground. He was hunting around for food. Starting to get a little fat. He's a little fat early in the summer, actually. It was kind of surprising.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. He's winning out there. He's doing his job. And so I went in and I actually got my bow. And, I knocked a small game arrow and I stood there. I didn't draw or anything like that. And I just watched. Now, it occurred to me that I was not going to have time. Like, I had a good shot. I felt confident. I felt ready. But there was a baby in a high chair at the moment that I was trying to feed. I was by myself. Mom was out of the house. I had 2 other kids that were in the house. And I just realized, like, I have no experience, like, dressing, butchering anything with a squirrel. And it's going to take longer no matter how prepared I am and how much reading I've done, how much video I've watched. Yeah. This is real life and it's going to take longer and it's going to be messier than I think it's going to be. So it occurred to me, this just isn't the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand here and I'm going to observe. I'm just going to, close range watch something that I may be eventually hunting and just try to learn from it. And I tried to gauge distance. I really tried to make a good guess on gauging distance. And, I guessed that it was just a little over 10 and it was 11 yards away. So I was pretty happy with my gauging distance at that point from close. And I called my son out because my son has taken an interest in archery as well since I've started shooting in the past few months. And so has my daughter. Everybody has been shooting and we've just been shooting target. And I think he's kind of getting the bug and he's starting to realize this is about hunting. He's 8 years old, almost 9 years old. he's starting to get the bug a little bit and think about the idea of hunting. And he's curious about, harvesting meat and all those sort of things and realizing the connection, which is the point, right? That's what you want. You want him to be thinking about that stuff at that age. But it occurred to me, I'm standing there with him, and I know that he's all about it. He's ready to go. And like, he's saying like, I think you got a good shot, Dad. I think you can do it. And I'm saying, yeah, I just don't think there's time right now. So we're just going to watch. And that I'm all good with. And then my 4-year-old daughter, Hannah, came out. And she's kind of been into it also, but she's 4. And she's kind of thinking about it in those terms of like, she's heard me talk about it, about, taking a shot or getting meat, stuff like that. I think she understands it, but I don't know if she really understands it.
Yeah.
Underscoring that. And like, only the people watching the video version would get air quotes.
Could see you do the quotes. Yeah,
exactly. They're implied air quotes. I'll try to do that in my voice from now on. But, that got me thinking. And she said, the little 4-year-old that said, I think you could shoot it, Daddy. And, she sounded like she's, on the surface, she sounded like, oh, yeah, that's just what you do. But it occurred to me that she's never watched anything die.
Yeah.
And that hit me pretty hard because we live a pretty sheltered suburban life here. I think both of us could admit to that we have our kids have a sheltered suburban life. You have a little girl that's 4 years old. I do. That's
right, Sadie.
Yeah. So, and that got us, I think that sparked some thoughts in me, and we texted about it a little bit that while she says like, oh, yeah, I understand, like, shooting the animal, you could take it. That's where meat comes from. I don't know that I was ready for her to see an arrow hit that animal and it twitch around and die in front of her. I don't know that she was ready, and it had not occurred to me till that point. I was excited about that they were into what I was into, that I was developing them into this, this new legacy that I'm trying to build. I was excited about that, but it occurred to me like she knows about death in the abstract. She knows that she doesn't know about it in the concrete. She knows about the death that she's seen on Disney movies. Or that, like my dad died earlier this year. She understands what that means. It made her sad. She's sad in a certain part because I'm sad. But there's a whole different thing to watch something die.
Absolutely.
And I think we're
in the same boat. We've lost, my wife's grandfather, and my daughter was around for that. And so she understands that, we've talked about people go away, they die. So she understands that they go away, but like you said, she's not seen it. Yeah. And that is, especially, when you're talking about small game, for sure, it's real cute. In all the movies, they're super cute and they're super funny and they sing sweet songs. Right. So in their 4-year-old mind, that's and then Daddy's gonna pulverize one. Yeah. In their 4-year-old minds, that's what those things. They go off into the woods and they sing funny songs and they have adventures. Yes. They don't get an arrow put through, their head. Right. That's very, very different. Yeah. And very, very real and very, very brutal. And and again, this is from that rookie perspective I talk about. Like I've seen things die. Like I've seen it, but at the same time, I haven't seen it die. Certain animals die at my hand as a hunter. I haven't seen that. I haven't experienced that. Now, in just observing and learning, it's very clear that the death of a large game animal of large game is different than what you see in small game. I think it's a lot more spastic, and there's a lot more nervous system activity with a small game. It seems like that they tend to twitch and bound around and freak out a lot more, which is in a way is more traumatic. There's no majesty to the way a squirrel dies. If you've seen a squirrel die, there's no majesty to it. It's it's grasping at every last possibility, and that's there's something to that. They are a prey animal, but I think they don't have that same kind of like, all right, I'm God. they don't have that thing. Like they don't have that anywhere. So that's what occurred to me is like, and that sealed the deal that I can't do this in front of them. And really even in front of the 8-year-old, because he's mentally a little tougher, but he's seen death. He's seen dead animals. He's seen animals kill other animals in real life, but that's a different thing. Is that level of responsibility and that jumping that divide between. Well, it's different not only in seeing a person take that animal's life, but your dad. Good point. Good point. That's even a whole nother level of you that he's probably not even fathomed. Yeah. I'm sure you've talked about it and you've explained what you're going to do, but to see it happen is going to be a whole new thing. 100%. Very true. Like watch that animal twitch. My dad made that happen. Right. Is going to be an emotional moment.
Yeah.
You know, especially, I mean, you know, I guess, you know, in other parts of the state or even in this county, there are kids growing up that are shooting their first deer at 6, 7 years old.
Yep.
You know, and that's their life. That's what, you know, or maybe younger. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not my kids, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Would I love for it to be? Sure.
Yeah.
But we live in a different place in a different time.
Yeah.
So,
and you and I have had to reignite that kind of tradition in our family. So we're, you know, we don't have like the built-in pre-installed hardware of life already. Like I've raised him for 8 years without going to hunt. Because, I mean, I went, 20, 30 some odd years without even being exposed to it. So there's that gap that we don't have that pre-installed, like he's seen it since day one.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I guess technically I've been hunting for 5 years, 6 years. But in those first couple of years, I maybe went, once or twice, only
and Sadie
really
was a baby.
And she wasn't even born when I started,
Right.
She's only 4.5 now. So last year she saw me leave, on 3 times to go hunting. And I was showing my wife a picture of one of the deers I shot.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And Sadie just happened to pop over our shoulders, and I was trying to not show her. She popped over the shoulder, and she goes, "Oh, well, what's that? What happened there?"
How interesting is that, by the way, that your instinct is don't let her see?
Right. Yeah. Like I sent Summer the picture. I told Summer, hey, I got one. Is Sadie around? She said no. So then I sent the picture. So then later we're at the house and Sadie sees it, and I'm like, "Goo." How do I explain this?
Yeah.
Well, I had talked to a friend of mine, Dan, who used to run a deer processing company. He's a well-versed hunter.
Yeah.
He has a granddaughter who is 6, and she's all about hunting. She's not, shot her own deer yet, I don't think, but she's grown up around it.
Yeah. And
I asked him, well, how do you explain that to her? And he said, well, what they've explained to her is that these animals, there's more animals than the land can support. And so what happens is if we don't do our part in trying to manage that population, right, which is a euphemism for kill deer.
Killing, yeah.
If we don't do our part in managing that population, these animals will get old and they will suffer and die.
Right, because they don't have natural predators beyond us in that environment. Because we fenced off a lot of the natural predators.
Right. And we try to kill off the coyotes, and they will wander into the woods and starve and die.
Yeah.
And then just be wasted. And then it's almost as if they've served no purpose. But in this process, by us managing these animals and taking them quickly and as humanely as possible, right? Being smart about our shot, being smart about our hunt, take them as quick as we can so they don't suffer, and then we get to benefit from their existence. They've served a purpose in nourishing us.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a big, circle of life situation that is the way you try to present it.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're just going out there because, this looks neat on my wall.
Right.
That's a big part of it is you have to practice what you preach.
For sure.
You have to use as much of that animal as you can. And, not just for Instagram posts.
Right. Absolutely. Just mostly for the fame.
Mostly for the fame.
No, and that's totally, that's such a great way of summing it, summarizing the whole thing. And, there's an interesting, no matter how you cut that, there is an artificiality to the whole thing because of our conservation efforts for the past 50 years. That's why there's such a surplus of animals and game animals.
Right.
So we've caused that. So in my mind, I think a lot of hunters, the guys that, like yourself and like Dan that I've talked to that are very knowledgeable, like it is our responsibility as hunters, as paying into that system for licenses, as becoming part of that, as being educated. That's your job now. Like your job is to be part of that system that we've helped to conserve, but now we have to manage.
And by abiding by the limits that are set, don't take more than you're supposed to.
Right.
Only take what you're supposed to. Use what you take, and that's how that's how we can keep doing this.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I will make a call on that, though, and I will say that is a very advanced way of thinking, and I could see that working for an older kid like my son, but with a 4-year-old, that's a pretty big systematic way of thinking. And
that we created this situation, and now we have to we created the situation so that we could have the opportunity to manage it.
Correct. And yeah, exactly. So it's complicated, and I don't like to underestimate kids, for one thing, because I've seen enough with 3 of them now that they're understanding more than they can put back out. They can comprehend more than their language abilities allow a lot of times. And with a 4-year-old, I think I would say that it's more important, this is my view, that while them understanding that there is a management aspect and there is a conservation aspect to it, I think you do have to deal with that on the ground, intimate idea of death a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And the only things that occurred to me in talking to other more experienced people and actually talking to my wife about it is, I find myself, in terms of education and entertainment, I find myself watching tons of videos of people taking animals and people doing it the best way and best possible way. And it occurred to me, that's a really big advantage we kind of have, is that we have the ability to show kids not real, on a screen, media, and the idea of what it takes for an animal to become meat, more or less. Like, what is that, or what it looks like to take an animal. And I think that's a way to create some psychological distance. I think that's a way to create that psychological distance.
You're saying show them these videos?
Show them the videos. Work them up to that. Talk to them first. I think more can be done with the words, obviously.
Right.
But when you feel like they're ready, show them the videos. Say, this hunter, we're watching from his camera, and we're going to see the arrow or the bullet hit that animal, and that animal's going to run. Like, explain what's going to happen. Get that out there for them. So the first time they're going out with you to the woods, it's not a total shock to their system.
Yeah.
Because, going back to what we said, we just don't have the history to where they grew up seeing us walk in with a carcass.
Right.
They don't have that prior knowledge, so it might be a little bit of a shock. So I think we could use the technology that we have available to us now to maybe create a little more of a psychological safety zone for a 4-year-old to be able to understand that before they see.
I think that's really good. And I think, especially if you're watching, really well produced videos.
Yes.
If you watch a hunting show now on a cable network, it's not brutal.
Right.
It's not graphic.
Right.
I mean, you'll see them take the shot, you'll see the animal jump and run, and then they'll show you
blood
the
trail
animal.
maybe, and
there may be
processing.
some blood trail. Yeah. There may be some of that, but it's never grotesque.
Yeah.
Or scary, where a kid might be freaked out by it.
And I think you could totally ramp from that to something that's a little bit more technical and intense. Like, one thing I love about Renella's show, Meat Eater, is that he will show you, the quartering, and he'll show you the dressing, and he'll show you everything. He'll show you that stuff. But it's not done in a voyeuristic way. It's done in a way of, this is how you do this skill.
It's instructional.
And then it shows you is how you get
It's almost clinical.
It is almost clinical. That's very well said. And
which takes the emotion out of it, I think.
It does, 100%. And the way that he shows that is good. But I don't think that's where you start day one with a 4-year-old.
Right.
I think, but there's very basic things. Like, this is from other experienced hunters that have said, like, if you can show them the parallel between the stuff that's under wrap at the grocery store when you're making it, if you're cutting a flank steak, or you got, T-bones, you got pork loins, show them, as they're learning about the anatomy of the game animal, show them that's what this is. Mm-hmm. That's this part of the animal. Show them on the human body. Yeah. Like, that's almost like this muscle would be for us. And that they're so bright, they're so smart, and they think in concrete terms so well like that I think that'll start to make sense to them. I don't know, but again, a lot of this is guesswork. We're going to find out as we go.
We're going to find out probably this winter. We're going to find out what it's like to explain to our kids what we're doing.
Yeah.
With this hunting thing that we do.
But I mean, what a great. Not to be cheesy with it, but I mean, what an honor to be able to do that, and to be able to give that to them, and to have the comfortable lives to where we can think about how we want to present it to our kids.
Exactly.
That I don't have to go get an antelope now or we starve.
Right.
Like, I can think about how to package this psychologically for my kids, and what a blessing that is to be in that place.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
All right, well, that is going to wrap it up for us. If you want to follow Camo Hooks, jump on Instagram. If you don't have an Instagram account, I don't know what you're doing, because the pictures on there are just lovely.
That's all I do with my time.
That's right. So follow Camo Hooks at Camo Hooks, all one word, on Instagram, and we will check you next time.
Yeah, see you again.